Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com. Today we're going to be using a mirror technique to make this card with the Wisteria Wishes bundle. So this is the stamp set and these are the dies. You can find the Wisteria Wishes bundle on page 92 of the new May 2022 to April 2023 annual catalogue. This die will cut out the leaves of this stamped image here. This one will cut out this leaf and this cluster of wisteria, plus a small leaf here. This die cuts out a twisted vine, like so. This die will cut and emboss the leaves at the same time. And this is an extra die. This is a shadow piece, so you cut that in perhaps a darker colour and the accent piece in a lighter colour, or vice versa. And these don't have any stamped images with it. So you can use it this way round or this way round, like a tree or a lupin. To create this trellis effect on the card, there are these new split card texture dies. There are two in the set. One is a square one and this is a floral one. And you'll find this on page 174 of the annual catalogue. There's a sample of it in use on page 86 with a masculine card. The inks I'm using are Orchid Oasis and Garden Green, and to decorate the card I'm also using the 2022 to 2024 in colour matte decorative dots. Now, when I had the brainwave idea to use that split card texture die as a trellis, you could see the back of the die cuts and it looked a bit unsightly, so that's why I used a mirror technique, so I could stamp the leaves in the opposite direction and cover that up. So to make this card you need 4 sets of this trio of wisteria, 2 that are front facing and 2 that has the mirror image stamped, and the same with the leaves, so you need 2 normal ones, and then you need another 2 which has been stamped with a mirror image. And to do the mirror technique you'll also need the stamp apparatus, a silicone mat, a scrap of Whisper White cardstock. You'll also need some crumb cake cardstock to cut lines, and I've pre-die cut those to save time. The card base is 4 1/8 by 11 3/4 in metric. That's 10.5 by 29 centimeters, and on the long side you score at 5 7/8 and fold it in half, and in metric that will be 14.5. For the inside of the card you have an Orchid Oasis piece, and that measures 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. In metric that's 10 centimeters by 14 centimeters. You have another matte layer for the inside of the card in basic white at 3 5/8 inches by 5 3/8 inches. That's 9.5 by 13.5 centimeters. First we want to cut our trellis. You want an even border on all 3 sides here. This is the card front, so you want to run that through the die cutting machine like so. You're cutting sandwich. This will be platform 1, the thin die adapter platform 2, the base cutting plate platform 3, your cardstock, the die, cutting edge face down, another plate 3, and then you're ready to run it through the machine. So I'll do that off camera. Then you want to take out all the insides of the lattice to reveal the framework. There is a brush end to your take your pick tool attachment which you can use to make it easier to pop all the bits out. I've just got the last few, so I'll just use the piercing tool. I'm going to apply adhesive to the Orchid Oasis piece so I don't mislay it. I need a foam mat to cushion the stamp because I'm stamping with photopolymer stamps, so I need an extra cushion. First I'm going to stamp the leaf. Bear in mind that this leaf, this bit here, has to be vertical. You don't have vines hanging down at funny angles, so you want to make that hanging vertically at a 90-degree angle. Let's ink that up, and I'll stamp that at full strength, trying to keep my vertical line. Then I want to stamp off, and I'm going to stamp it in this direction, in the opposite direction. I want to use this small leaf and stamp some leaves coming down. Now this Wisteria Wishes is actually a two-step stamp because you need two different stamps to complete the image, so that's why it's called two-step stamping. So first I'm going to stamp the shadows of the background, and I want that in the lighter colour, but I don't really want to use another ink pad. So one way to achieve this is by doing second or third generation stamping, because each time you stamp it without re-inking the stamp, you will leave a lighter impression. Straight from the ink pad to the paper will be called first generation. And don't re-ink the stamp, and just stamp straight onto your cardstock, and that is called second generation because it's the second time you're stamping. So now I want to take the accent piece, which is the smaller stamp, ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that directly onto the project, and that's called first generation stamping. Stamp the sentiment. And now I can glue this piece onto the inside of the card. Make sure it's the right way up. So to make this card you need 4 sets of this trio of wisteria, 2 that are front facing and 2 that has the mirror image stamped. And the same with the leaves, so you need 2 normal ones, and then you need another 2 which has been stamped with a mirror image. So I'm going to place it away from the hinge. Remember to stamp off first. So blot that off with a piece of copy paper and stamp. Okay. Now I want to stamp the mirror image of that, so I leave my stamp in the same position, ink it up again, stamp off, stamp on. So you see on the silicone mat you've got an impression of the stamp underneath. So put back your cardstock in exactly the same position. Remember not to smudge it, and you want to clean your stamp because you don't want it to get any darker. And stamp again. And it should pick up the ink from the underside. Now that's not dark enough, so I'm going to stamp again. And I need to stamp off again. Stamp to transfer the ink without the cardstock first. Lift up, pop your cardstock back in, remember again, right into the corner without jiggling it or anything. Clean the stamp because you don't want the front of the stamp to get any darker, but you want the profile of the stamp to put pressure so that on the back of the card it will pick up the ink. See, it's done that now. Okay, and do the same on this side. Now I'm going to mark my paper so I know that that's the top. So this is the top and that's the reverse, okay, when it comes to die cutting. Now I'm going to flip my card over so I can do the same thing on the top here and stamp it again, because I need two, because it's exactly the same process. So there's my two normal images, and this is the one that's been stamped on the reverse, so I need two of those. So let's now tackle the leaves. So it's the same sort of process. You need to stamp two for the front. Now I need to stamp it for the reverse. So ink it up and stamp onto the silicone mat to transfer the ink onto the silicone mat. I'm going to clean this because it's a bit dirty. Because this isn't a two-step stamping image, I can just simply stamp on top because I'm not going to see that anyway. Okay, so let's see how that's taken. Could do with another ink. So transfer the ink onto the silicone mat. Pop your cardstock in. Make sure it doesn't smudge. Put it right in the corner and lay it down. And stamp again. Check that that's sufficient ink coverage. It is. I want to clean my silicone mat. Might as well clean the stamp. I want to move that down and stamp again. So move it down by one hinge, ink up the stamp again, transfer the ink onto the silicone mat, then pop my cardstock in, make sure that there aren't going to be any smudges, and stamp again. Check that the ink has taken. No, it hasn't, so I have to stamp that again. Transfer the ink to the silicone mat, pop the card in the corner, butt it right up against the corner, stamp again. So remember to not just clean your stamp, but also to clean your silicone mat, so that next time you use it, it won't have ink on it. So I'll go and die cut my pieces and I'll be back. So there are my die cut pieces, and these are the vines, which is in the brown. I'm just going to put adhesive on the ends here. I want a bit of adhesive on these bits that jut out as well, so then I can put the vine coming out from it. So the vine will have to be fairly low down, say about an inch and a bit, otherwise the top of the leaf will be off the page. I'm going to put another one there. And I'm going to use glue dots on the back. Tuck that underneath, like so. Double check this is the top one, so it's not been stamped on the back. The ones that have been stamped on both sides are the ones that go on the inside of the card, so set that aside so you don't accidentally glue them to the front. And I'm just going to pop some dimensionals on the back of these. Then I'm going to put Tombow on the back here as well and marry it up with the one, oops, behind. Then you can pop your leaves on. Going to pop glue dots on the back of this as well. Just trim a tiny bit off there. Hurry up with the reverse of the leaves on the back there, and again attach it with glue dots. And just put a bit of glue on this bit here. Make sure that marries up. That one goes first, so again glue dots. The final touch, the sentiment on the bottom here and a couple of the matte decorative dots. Bring back my Orchid Oasis ink and I'm just going to make sure that's straight on the grid, and this is straight, and I'm just going to stamp the sentiment here. Last thing to do is to put on the 2022 to 2024 matte decorative dots. Now I won't put so many on this one as I did here. The only reason I did that was because I wanted to cover up the smudges. There's a method in the madness. So voila, there's the card completed. I hope you've enjoyed this mirror technique. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll be back with more inspiration next time. If you enjoyed this tutorial, do give me a thumbs up, subscribe or share if you haven't already, and my grateful thanks if you do. If you're watching from YouTube, then the list of supplies will be below this video in the Show More section. You can also find me on Facebook, Pinterest or Instagram. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll be back soon. Bye!